Hi, everyone. I have a doctorate in electrical engineering, and I've worked for the last 16 years in the security and intelligence community. And in both those communities, there are very few women, and at the intersection of both, there are even fewer. And that's a huge loss and shame. So I'm here to talk to you guys about my journey into both those worlds, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to talk about some of the harder experiences I've had, and hopefully leave, especially some of the young women listening to this who are considering a career either in engineering or STEM fields or in security and intelligence, a little bit of advice. So I'll start with, how did I get into engineering? So as a kid, I wanted to be all kinds of things. I wanted to be a dog walker, a flute player, a ballerina until I actually took a ballet class, an astronaut, a paleontologist. One common theme is always did like puzzles, jigsaw puzzles, word puzzles, number puzzles. But there was one class in physics when I was about 14, 15 years old that had a big impact on me. So, next slide. There we go. So in my physics class, there were tables set up around the room, and there were ramps on these tables of different lengths and angles, and we had to calculate where a ball would land if you launched it off that ramp. And the key thing was there was only one ball. Teacher had it in his pocket, so we had to do this all with math. And when you were ready, you put your bullseye on the floor where you thought the ball would land, call the teacher over. So when I called him over, launched that ball, wouldn't you know it, it landed right in the middle of that bullseye. I mean, you know the math should work, gravity, and you can calculate this, but to actually see it happen, to see the math predict what's going to happen in the world, kind of blew my mind. And I knew right there and then that is what I wanted to do. I wanted to do more of using math to predict the world, so I went into engineering. One thing that's important to know about my high school time is it was an all-girl high school. So the fact that I liked engineering or physics, that's fine. There were some people who did, some didn't. Some at the top of the class, some at the bottom. Didn't matter who you were, just what you were interested in and your talents. When I went into engineering, almost all men. And that was a very different experience. And it came up in weird ways. First one was expressions of surprise. Oh, you like engineering? Good for you. Or, oh, you got an A? Oh, wow. And they didn't say that to my male colleagues. They weren't surprised they were in engineering or did well on their math test. This was a very gendered response. When I got to my grad studies, a little bit of a different phenomena started to happen. I started to get photographed a lot. This low-resolution photo is the only photo of me you will see if you Google my name on the internet. Lovely photo. They used it in many different places, website, for the university, promotional material. Interesting thing about that photo, though, those are the wrong goggles for that laser. Completely not eye safe. The goggles I was supposed to wear were much heavier, brown, dark, more like welder's goggles. And the photographer didn't like how they looked. He wanted something much lighter, feminine, delicate. So we put those on, which were no protection whatsoever for that kind of laser. To make matters worse, I was the lab manager at the time. I was the one in charge of making sure people were wearing the right goggles for their experiments. So I'm now immortalized on the internet with the wrong goggles for that laser. It happened again. Here's another one. You can see me there. Lovely photo. They used it a lot for the alumni paper, school paper, on the website. They liked this one so much it kept appearing, different angles. And if you look below, that's me too. Obviously not enough women in engineering. And I do appreciate that they wanted diversity in the photos. It's important for people to see themselves, to attract more people, 100%. I get that. I get why the photographer made the photo the way he did. But for the person getting chosen over and over again, you're not being picked because you're a good engineer. It's not because your lab setup was good. That was not my lab setup. Mine was on the other side of the lab. It was only because of how I looked. And that does eat away at your confidence over time. It's a little reminder every time someone's surprised you're doing well, or you're getting picked for a photo, it's because that you stand out, not because you're good at your job. So I went from that, worked in private industry for a few years, also a company of all men. So much so in the company they put a sign on the women's washroom saying Madeleine's washroom, since I was the only one to use it. Again, good joke, good humor, but it was a reminder I was different. I stood out. It was a joke a little at my expense. But did that for a little while, and the problems I was solving were rewarding, but there was something missing. I wanted to give back more to society, and that's a little easier for a doctor or say a biomedical engineer, but for a telecommunications engineer like myself, the link between your work and what you do is a little more tenuous. I did, however, have a friend who worked in the security intelligence community, and when he started in that after his grad studies, he kind of disappeared off the map, as is the habit of people who go into that community. And honestly, I kind of forgot about him completely. But he reached out, assured me they needed telecommunications engineers in that field, so I applied. And that application completely changed the course of my career. So when people think of security intelligence, they think of that. That is not what I do. I am much closer to Q on the technical side, or since I'm an executive now, M, or kind of a morph between M and Q, if you will. And just like my friend, when I started in that community, I also dropped off the map. This is also a community with very few women in it. And though did try to keep a low profile, the very fact that you're a woman makes you stand out. A good example, a few years after starting this new career, went to a technical conference, wasn't presenting, just attending, like all of you. And it was a huge conference, 15,000 attendees, 8 parallel sessions, 2 very large vendor exhibit floors. I'm there minding my own business, good conference. I go back. A few months later, I wanted to look up a paper I had heard, went to their website. And then what did I see on the website? That's me. So even in a conference where I'm not intending for anyone to pay any attention to me, the photographer managed to find me and some other lady. We just didn't know each other, just happened to sit next to each other. He happened to see us, put it up on the web. So you never really escape that. So the security intelligence field is an extremely rewarding environment. So I work primarily in the side of preventing cyber attacks, which is when you have prevented something like a ransomware attack against a hospital, it's a tremendous feeling of satisfaction. You know what you've done has genuinely helped the world. But it's also a very difficult field. If you think of ransomware attacks, malware, phishing scams, and artificial intelligence is honestly putting a whole other layer of complexity on top of that, with deep fakes, for example. This is a very difficult environment. You need a lot of people working together and collaborating to solve these problems. You need many diverse and unique points of view. You need more than just men at the table to solve these problems. And what I have found is women are excellent collaborators. They bring a unique perspective to this, they bring unique point of view, and they collaborate and they communicate really well. When I have led teams of primarily men, which has been often, I find the tone of the team tends to be much more competitive than collaborative. And then, don't get me wrong, competition can be good. It can push you to strive, to finish something, work late one night, finish a problem. But at the end of the day, competition won't get you all the way there. You need to collaborate and work together. One person can't solve these problems. And that's where having women come in adds a lot to the team. I find women are also really great coaches and mentors. One of my favorite things to say when I'm mentoring someone is, "Can I show you?" I'll contrast that with a time I went to go see a guy who reported to me. He had just solved a problem, a good technical problem, and I wanted to know what he had done. I said, "Oh, could you show me what you did? And he said to me, you don't need to know. He said, you don't need to know. I needed to know. This was my job. I needed to know what he did, what the cost was, the level of effort, the impact. Him deciding for me what I needed to know was the most arrogant, condescending, patronizing thing he could have possibly said, completely counterproductive. And I strongly suspect that was a gendered response. I don't know for sure. I would have to live my life twice to know. But I do have a friend who's kind of been able to do that. So she's a trans woman. She transitioned a little later in life, in her mid-30s. Computer scientist, works in private industry. Excellent programmer. And it's important for me to say she did transition within a company that was very supportive. Supportive of her name change, her pronoun change. This was a very inclusive company. But even then, she noticed a change afterwards. She noticed her ideas were not taken as seriously. She had more trouble speaking up in meetings. People would speak over her. They would interrupt, dismiss it. This is a real phenomena that happens. And it doesn't ever really stop. Just a few weeks ago, I was in a meeting. These were fellow executives. There was one other woman in there, and the rest were all men, about a dozen. And she's a little more soft-spoken than I am. And I could tell she had something she wanted to say. She was trying to break through, interrupt. And nobody was paying any attention, just talking over her, ignoring her every time. But I noticed, we locked eyes, and we knew, yes, this is one of those times. But I was able to help her. I was able to break the flow of conversation, give her a chance to speak, and afterwards kind of amplify her message, repeat it, make sure people paid attention to it. It was a really good idea that she had. So while it is a very challenging environment, women do look out for each other, and we do help, and it makes it much more supportive. So I want to leave young women especially, considering either of these careers, kind of 3 pieces of advice. First one is, if you like STEM, be in STEM. Physics doesn't care what your gender is. Math doesn't care. If you like it, do it. It's there for you. It's a very fun, rewarding field. Second, your unique point of view is needed. You might feel like your idea is different, you shouldn't mention it, or people aren't paying attention to you, they're talking over you. You are needed in that room. You need to speak up. Your value is your uniqueness. And finally, you will feel alone. There are a lot of times you will feel all alone in that room, surrounded by a sea of men. But remember, you're not alone. There are other people. There are people like me. We may not be in that meeting, but we have been there. We have done that. We know how it feels. So seek us out. Seek your community. Build that network. Build the people around you. And you will find strength in that. Because again, these problems, this world needs all those points of view. And really, at the end of the day, do we want only men making the security decisions for the world? Thank you.